beautiful boss babes. How's everybody doing out there? I have an awesome guest on the podcast with us today. She is a spiritual expansion mentor. And let me elaborate on that. She's a motivational speaker, podcast host, 5D and quantum field mystic, subconscious mindset hacker, spiritual light worker, and just an overall incredible human being. Welcome to the show, Miss Taylor Simpson. Thank you.
Thank you, sister, for having me on. And just chatting about where we met at a mutual friends event, Kayla, and just all the things that have been going on in life ever since then. So I'm just grateful to be here chatting with you and downloading all the goodness.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for being able to do this with me. I know you're gonna, share your light with everybody, and so I'm huge on storytelling and just really sharing your story and your journey with others. Kind of like, I want you to elaborate with us, like what your journey is, how you've turned some darkness to light, and dive deep with us.
Bring it. I love it. Oh my gosh. Do you want me to share my story?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. Oh my gosh. I'm like all the 9 lives I've lived.
Take us all the way back.
Yeah. Well, I love this question because I like to always preface it with the reminder that where someone is hasn't always been where they are. So I know a lot of people look at my life and think, wow, like it just happened. It was easy and life just gets to be easy for her. And look at her doing all these things. And I'm like, oh, no. It took a lot of inner work, a lot of challenges, life opportunities, I like to say, to get here. And so really for me, this journey started about 7.5 years ago, where my air quote rock bottom. I'd grown up in a family where it was perfect on the outside and not so perfect behind the scenes. I had a very narcissistic father who also happened to be a pastor. So there was a little bit of confusion there. And he ended up making lots of bad life choices, and which allowed my family not to communicate how we were feeling about his inappropriate life choices. And so during that, I was shoving down my feelings, my anger towards him, my confusion, right, about all of that. And then other things happened in my life, a lot of trauma. And along that way in middle school and high school, I was a queen at really blending in with how people wanted me to be. So the expert people pleaser, I like to say.
Yeah, I was one of those.
Right? Yeah. Like it's just, you're like, oh, I'm going to change my clothes to fit in with them. I'm going to talk differently to fit in with them, because I kept hearing, you're too much, right? You're too much, Taylor. You talk too much. Your outfits are too much. And so not only at home was I not able to be myself and voice my opinion, but I had them morph in to fit in with any friends. And so by the time I got to college, got my undergrad and my master's in international development, on the outside, everything looked perfect. On the inside, hot mess, had no idea who I was, and eventually had this, dream 9-to-5 job working on Capitol Hill and for the UN, in a marriage that at that time I thought was going to rescue me and take care of me, and ended up being totally out of alignment. And that rock bottom moment that I was sharing that happened 7.5 years ago was me sitting on a couch with my, spoiler alert, ex-husband, having just broken yet another vase, having eaten an entire pint of Ben and Jerry's, bottle of wine, and never feeling so alone or so lost with who I am. And I remember sitting there with like confusion and rage in my body and looking around me, this home that we lived in and the job I had, and just thinking, wait, where did that Taylor who, had glitter all over her body and loved unicorns and had pink hair and all the things, what happened to her? Like, this is not who she is. And so I realized there that I had completely lost touch with that true version of me. The next day, I admitted myself to both anger management and Overeaters Anonymous, because I actually had major anger and rage issues, while on the outside looked perfect. What people don't know, I was constantly breaking things when I got into arguments with my ex-husband because I didn't know how to communicate. So instead of the words coming out, the energy would pulse through my hands and I'd have to find something to just break it to get the energy out. So I didn't know how to communicate because it wasn't safe for me to communicate growing up.
Right.
And so I was then shoving food down, down my mouth to hold in the feelings because it wasn't safe. So I became addicted to food, addicted to candy, to sugar, to everything, was a binge eater. And that next day when I was in both of those different programs and started that was the start of my self-development journey. Before then, I was completely asleep, had no idea what self-development was, what spiritual awakening was, none of that. And that's what got me to learn, okay, how did I let myself get here? How did I let myself get so out of touch and so obsessed with how other people view me? Before I know it, I'm down that rabbit hole and completely changing my life. Quit my 9 to 5, started my own business to support other people and their journey, got a divorce, and really just made the choices to get more in alignment. And where I'm at now and why I'm so obsessed with helping people get back in touch with who they are and their truth is because I just remember how painful it was to be so out of touch with who I am. And that's why it's like, I want everyone to have the opportunity to remember who they are.
Absolutely. I love that. I mean, I literally just recorded a video today about the exact same thing. I mean,
Wow.
not your story, obviously,
Yeah.
but in my own words about getting so lost and like losing myself in relationship after relationship and like the deep rooted story as to why,
Yeah.
why I was voiding things, why I was voiding emotions and actually truly feeling
Yeah.
things that, and so many of us, we don't even know that we're doing it
Yeah.
until maybe you have a situation and experience like you had when you're just like sitting on the couch like, what the fuck is going on with me? Kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like my journey too. Like I was like, what am I doing? Like my 9 to 5, I was so unfulfilled and I was just like recklessly dating guys. Obviously the stories that I was creating in my head for them were a lot different than the reality of the true story that was happening and everything too. And I just kept losing myself, like one guy after the other, losing myself in my career, just lost. And I had like, weight issues and that kind of thing back in 2015 and lost myself in that as well. Like, I was like, who is this girl? What is happening? So yeah, I mean, was there like when you were sitting on the couch and you had that like moment, what even gave you the thought like this needs to change tomorrow?
Yeah. I always hear people when they had like their rock bottom story and was like, wow, how they know it was their rock bottom, like how they know that was like the lowest they can go. And it was just this like voice in my head, my intuition that said, this isn't you. Like, where did you go? And I kept hearing this voice of where did you go? And I'm like, I'm here. I get goosebumps even saying that. Like, I'm here. And it's like, no, who were you when you were little? Like that was your true essence. And I was just so sick and tired of like scrolling through Instagram, looking at other people's lives. And it was just a moment where it was like, this isn't fun. Like
Right.
none of this situation do I want to continue to repeat every single evening. I just don't. Like it was very much like, okay, I'm done. Like I've got to do something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you were married. How long I mean, did you guys try and save your marriage a little bit after that point, or was it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually what was it then about 7 or 8 months later, I actually probably actually about a year at that point later, we did the things, we went to counseling, had the tough conversations. But then as I'm going through my spiritual awakening, I realized, oh crap, we were just literally two different people that got married, like people that just two asleep people, right? When you're not, don't know who you are, you attract someone else who doesn't know who they are.
Yeah.
And so I ended up actually kind of doing like an eat, pray, love thing. I spent 4 months in Costa Rica. I bought a one-way trip and I rented a house right on the water and just went back home in her home to figure out what I wanted. And I knew pretty much on day 2 of, yeah, we're not for each other. And it was an amicable divorce. We just both admitted, we're like, yeah, like you're not my person. I'm not your person. we were just two people who were trying to fill a void in each other's life. And I want the best for you. I want the best for you. Like, I want you to find your wife that will, you know, align with you, and vice versa. So it was a while until I could admit it to myself. I think that was the ego, was like, wow, you're going to divorce. Divorces look bad. I had this story in divorce. And there was a lot of, again, the people pleaser of, who will I be to say, wow, I'm divorced at that point was age 28.
Mhm.
And then I had to get over my ego and say, okay, what's more important? My own happiness and my ex-husband's own happiness, or what it looks like to other people, heaven forbid. And so really it was a battle of ego. And then we had to just say, okay, our soul contract is complete. Like, thank you for being in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so important. I think that there's so many of us, again, like going back to the stories that we create in our head, it's like, where is that story actually coming from? And yeah, I mean, I've had very similar, like, just, I guess, like I said, like going back to those stories myself, I'm like, even like just the topic of divorce. I mean, you know, like I was on Love is Blind, like the TV, like the Netflix show. And that was a really, really big thing. So 2018 was when we filmed that. And I dated someone in like 2019 later on. And it's interesting because in between that time, I wound up reading the book, The Four Agreements.
So good.
So
I was just talking about this book on another podcast last week. Wow. You're the second person to say that. So I obviously need to reread it.
yeah, it's so good. But yeah, no, I've read it twice, and it really is so interesting, like how we hear messages differently every time that we hear them, quote unquote. So it's just like different parts of the book spoke to me differently this time. But I was like, oh my God, that, like, I wish that I had read that book first when I first started my entire journey. Let's put it that way, because I think it would have, like, obviously, well, it would have helped me grow prior to going on that show and all of that. But like, I remember the producers asking me, like, why, if you say no at the altar, like, why? And I was, or if you say yes at the altar, and I was like, I don't know what I can say. I said, I don't believe in divorce. Granted. So saying that, I was like, do I believe in divorce? I don't know. Do I, like, but because I have parents that have been married for 40, I think they'll be married 41 years this year. And so that's a long time of seeing a relationship work.
Yeah.
And it's, and yes, like there's the religious beliefs that came through that. Like my mom was raised Catholic, and so she, like, you work it out, unless they're beating you, work it out, kind of thing. And anyway, so after reading the Four Agreements, though, I remember having this conversation with the guy I was dating, and I was like, what's really, like, this, like, thing that just, like, downloaded into my brain was, like, this whole concept around divorce. Like, maybe that's not truly my belief that everyone needs to be divorced or needs to be married unless they're getting beaten to death. Like, people do grow apart, and like, and yeah, and the same thing, like, I had this thing the other day, this thought, I'm like, okay, are people, like, it was almost like this, like, limiting belief started all popping up for me, because I'm like, okay, so the people that haven't done the work, quote unquote, and they're happy and they're married and all these things, and I'm like, but I'm over here single, I'm doing the work, I should be attracting, like, all kinds of people in my life right now. But I'm like, are all those people that have never done the work, are they truly happy? It was just like a thought, and I'm not like, not in, attacking anyone out there listening.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a thought that came in, and I'm like, it was just interesting. But I think that I have just evolved my thoughts around everything, and I think, had I gotten married, or if I ever get married, when I get married in the future, I have to be okay with the fact that people grow apart, and they may never have been aligned to begin with. It's just like you're saying, you're filling a void, and it's a mirror. You're attracting who you are. So
yes.
I
And
mean,
by the time you change, we can't expect people to always change with us too. And that's where going to therapy and saying, hey, maybe you want to do the work with me, but if the partner's like, no, right? And that's where it's like, oh shit, okay, like this contract, this soul contract may have just been for 5 years, and we learned so much from each other. And so what a beautiful realization for you to have, of like, oh, I have a new view over something. And it allows you to, when you say, yeah, you used to be so anti-divorce, but then I was like, well, that's boxing me being anything anti, because as we evolved, I changed my mind and opinion about things probably every day if I wanted to.
Yeah, it's so true. And it really has. I mean, just doing this inner work, I mean, it frees you in so many ways. So many ways. I mean, and not to say that I sit here and I like contradict my thoughts every day, but I do challenge myself to open myself up and be more accepting of what, okay, well, that was the belief, but maybe it's this way actually, you know?
Evolve and grow. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool. So it was funny because you were like, people are listening to the podcast, they can't see your face, that you do have pink hair now. And you said you were this girl wanting pink hair with glitter and unicorns and all the things when you were younger. So what did you, like, when people would ask you, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did you have a thing that you wanted to be?
Well, it's actually funny, and even when you just said that, it actually kind of made me emotional because this is hysterical. This is like, wow, real time right now. Is I actually growing up, I said I wanted to be a farmer like my grandfather. That's all I wanted to be. My grandfather passed away this past summer. Well, actually, not my grandmother did. He passed away in October. He was a farmer. And it's funny, my husband and I, we just, as of real time, signed and closed on our a dream home in South Carolina. And we got accepted to adopt a potbelly pig when it's born, and we're getting chickens. And to top it off, we're in the middle of buying land in Costa Rica to build our dream home, which will have a garden. Both homes will have a garden. They'll both have animals. And so it kind of hit me. And even just asked that, I was like, oh my God, I actually am about to live what I said I wanted to be when I grow up. And it was like, literally, I haven't, because it just happened yesterday. So when you asked that, I'm like, oh my God, it's actually real. And so real time right now. So it was to be a farmer. And what, and I don't believe in a this or that life. I believe in this and that. And so I get to do what I do. And I get to have my mini farm in South Carolina and my mini farm in Costa Rica. And I get to live out that dream and make the impact that I do. So yeah, I'm actually, as of now, officially going to be doing what I wanted to do when I was little.
I love it. I love that so much. I had a full circle story as well. My, childhood as well. I wanted to be one of three things. I wanted to be an actress, a teacher, or a baby doctor.
I love it.
As I started to like get closer, like everyone, when you're 5, they're like, yeah, you can do anything you want to be, right? And then 17 hits and it's like, okay, we got to start making actual life decisions here. So, the teaching thing kind of, my mom had been a teacher for like close to 15 years. And that was like, well, do you really want to do that? Like mom worked her ass off and it's so political. You don't get paid enough, blah, blah, blah. You really want to do that. Doctor, Kelly, you've just gone to school for 12 years. Want to go to school for another 12 years and be a doctor and have like $100,000 worth of student debt, blah, blah, blah. Okay, acting. This is like really competitive. I don't know about that either. I'm like, well, shit, I don't know what the hell I want to do then. So like I went through school getting like just no real guidance. I mean, they have school counselors and that kind of thing, but I really just didn't know what I wanted to do. I became a professional, bar goer.
Right. Ditto. That was me.
So, I definitely had my fun in college, but I also had no direction in college. I just like, my sister got a fashion merchandising degree. I got a fashion merchandising degree. It was just like, whatever. But long story short, again, I was like super unfulfilled my entire 20s, early 30s. And then just a few years ago is when my whole journey began down this like life fulfillment path. And now I'm coaching women and I'm like, okay, I'm a teacher. Yes, I have been on TV, but I have to show up also on video for my clients and, audience. So there's something. And then doctor wise, I am healing people.
Yes.
So it all came full circle.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, this is so good.
Now you can be a farmer and this is all so great.
You're like the farmer thing, like, wait, like that's cute when you're little. I was like, oh no, I know how to deliver a cow. I know how to shear a sheep. Like I'm like, I have pink hair and bougie AF, right? But I'm like, I can get down and dirty. So look at us both doing our things.
That's so cool. I love it. So, okay. So elaborate a little bit like on maybe like the binge eating journey.
Yeah.
You admitted yourself.
Yeah.
And how long were you in that?
Wow.
When were you able to like shift the mindset and change the behaviors?
Yeah. it feels like forever ago, but also kind of like just yesterday sort of thing, because it was so deep. One, I knew I was addicted to food because I just, anytime I had any sort of emotion, any trigger, even procrastination, hurt feelings, Instagram, right? Like, just I would immediately go to food and eat it until I was never end up being purger, but I would eat it until I was like so sick. And so when I first went there, you go through a 12-step program, just like AA. OA is similar to AA. And then you get a guardian to help you through it. And I remember I was terrified to go to my first meeting. During that time also, I like to preface, I'm a motivational speaker now, but I dealt with massive social anxiety growing up, so much that I would actually break out in hives at the grocery store when it was my turn to check out, because like it was bad. It was like I was so deep in my own wounds that it would like come out in really crazy ways. And so terrified to go to my first meeting, that I actually begged my ex-husband, my husband at the time, obviously, to come with me. And he came with me and he sat in the back of the room, because I was like, I am so scared to even be around a group of women in general and to admit that I have an eating disorder. And so I went, and it was the most beautiful meeting. It was women, I used to judge books by covers, and that was only because that was my own wound. People judge, I grew up being judged all the time until people knew me and they're like, oh, you're not what you look like. And so I judged people ahead of time. And then I met these women who were just normal women like me, all ages, shapes, sizes, colors, everything. And we all have these really deep childhood wounds that we're shoving with food. And so the first meeting was really big part of my spiritual awakening of, wow, I used to judge a lot and assume from people. And so that was really even cool to connect with women and, and moms and daughters and aunts and all of that over a common thing. And so, I had a mentor, and she supported me and checked in with me and would text me. And I would actually, anytime I was about to binge or just binged, I would text her and say, hey, like I'm about to lose my shit. And she would call me and walk me through it. Sometimes I would sneak and relapse. And just like AA, you relapse in overeaters. And in the beginning of each one, you share how many days you've been, air quote, sober. And, I struggled. It was really hard. I think I'd go like 3 days and then I have emotions. But with anger management being partnered with it, I was learning how to communicate. So I'm actually grateful I had those two, because anger management was helping me share my thoughts or write out my thoughts in journaling or coloring or painting. But it probably took me about 8 to 9 months to actually really let it click, because I was so wounded, and scared to share my thoughts. And it was probably about the 8-month mark, it clicked, and I realized through all the work, the books like Four Agreements, I realized the choices I was making just weren't aligned with who I knew I wanted to become. And so after about that 8-month mark, I totally changed my relationship with food, and embraced food, and didn't look at it as a Band-Aid, and incorporated journaling in my routine, meditation, finding sisters in my life that got me and saw me and held space for me. And so adding different modalities into my life helped me realize that food wasn't the fixer. It was me that could fix my own thoughts, along with support from people. And so it was a pretty long journey. And there's still times, like I always say, recovering, there's times where I'll be triggered by something and I have the tools to unpack it, but almost like if I'm tired or just stressed, I'll see myself reaching. I don't keep like Oreos, and my husband and I eat really healthy. But we keep like almond chocolate chip cookies in our pantry, and I'll see myself going for the dried mangoes or anything sugary, and kind of aimlessly eating, and then catching myself being like, okay, Taylor, snap out of it. I'll get like kind of just zoned out, and I catch myself and realize, I see what you're doing. You're avoiding even the smallest thing. Put it down, go get it done, and then you can come back and have a cookie. And so it's a constant thing, but I catch myself and understand and have compassion, versus like, wow, shame on you. You may as well just eat the rest of the fucking box now. And so I've learned how to do that pivot.
Yeah, I love that. were you journaling? You mentioned journaling as like
Yeah.
the like techniques that they use to help you with
Yes.
anger management.
Yeah.
Was that like your first time journaling?
Yes, I had like a diary growing up, right? I think all of us that,
Yeah.
who grew up in the 70s and 80s, if you were born in the 80s, you definitely had a diary.
Lisa Frank.
Right. Yeah, Lisa Frank, 100%. Yeah, journaling. I've journaled actually every single day for the past 7.5 years now. That's why I came out with a journal, and all my clients journal. It's a non-negotiable thing in my life and anyone that works with me, because it literally allowed me to have a safe space to share my thoughts and my feelings that no one could read, no one could judge me for, that I could unpack. So it's, what that looks like for me now is I write down what I'm grateful for, my intentions, affirmations, and anything else that's like, I'm really stressed out this morning and I don't know why. Just anything that needs to come out of my brain and onto paper, I put out. But yeah, that was an absolute game changer for me, was journaling.
Yeah, same. I mean, and it's interesting because like if there are days that I don't do it, even if it's like one line, like for
Yeah,
whatever reason,
anything.
like I try to like honestly, I try to keep my journal like on my bed so
Yeah.
that it's like there and not like put tucked away somewhere. For whatever reason, on the weekends seems to be the days that I like
Yeah.
don't do it. I don't know why, but whatever. Sometimes I do. But anyways,
Yeah.
um it's just like, I mean, it really has though been such a integral part of
Yeah.
my practice as well. I read the book The Miracle Morning, and that was like,
Good.
that's what encouraged me to start this whole like morning routine and
Yep.
just really start and have a miracle morning.
Yeah.
But if I don't journal, if there go days without journaling, I really do feel out of alignment and
Yeah.
off. And it's just it makes you feel icky,
It
like
does.
when you are consistent about working out and then you're like don't work out for a while and you're like, oh, I just feel like bleh.
Yeah.
Kind of the same feeling that I get anyways.
Yeah. Like, as you get up in your head, I know if I don't journal in the morning, and because I'm human, right? And I'll forget in the morning, I'll wake up and I'm like, oh, that thing. But then I'll journal at night, and I know those days where I feel like lofty and like the rest of the world has my energy that I haven't locked in a journal. And so anyone listening that's like, really, it's like that big, it really is. Like, it
Yeah,
really is.
it really, really is. What kind of advice would you give to someone? Because I've had this pop up, what if someone reads my journal? Like I'm afraid to journal on paper because my husband's gonna see it, or, my mom or someone. Like, what
Yeah.
is what is your advice on that?
Full transparency on this one. My ex-husband actually read my journal. And so that's a very, like, I've got some, like, I joke with my current husband, I got like PTSD, who my husband actually was in the army, but like, so it's okay to joke with him. He did, that was a really big, the end of our kind of like, okay, yep, no, we're done. Like we're not, respectful of each other at this point enough where we honor that. And so actually, yeah, I'm someone who had their
Mm,
um partner read their journal, and it needed to happen. It did. And so what that means for me is, anyone that's listening is like, oh, I wish I didn't know that. It's just making sure then that you have people in your life, or your partner, that you trust and that respects you.
right.
So for me, I realized at that moment, wow, we love each other, but have zero respect for each other. Therefore, I need to create boundaries and have a conversation about this. And so really, if you're scared of that, that's actually a gift to step back and be like, interesting. I would be even worried about my partner reading my journal.
Yeah.
Let me actually look a little deeper into that, of, wow, we probably don't have as good a communication as I wish we did. Maybe I haven't been as honest with myself, right? Because if we don't trust someone else, it's usually a mirror for our own trust in ourselves. And so I love this question, Kelly, because yeah, if you're like, yeah, that's me, look at it as, why? Why would I be worried about that? And then actually maybe talk to your partner about that. Hey, I want to take up a journaling, but I'm scared you're going to read it. And have them hold space for you and see what they would say to that.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I absolutely love that. Yeah, I mean, if there's any type of like red flag per
Yeah.
se that comes up, it's like, okay, lean into that. We really, really do.
Yes.
And again, like going back to like what I was saying about like we create stories in our head, like that's your own red flag to yourself. If you're having to create a story, I mean, we've do like girls that are single and dating out there. It's like, oh, he loves me, he does this, and blah blah blah. But then like 5 seconds later, you're like venting about how terrible this man is to like, you know, to you, and how he's not showing up for you, and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay.
I like that we're interesting whenever that happens. If I even catch myself, or if it's like a girlfriend that we know, I speak candidly and we, are honest with each other. It's like interesting that would even be a thought. Let's lean into that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, I love that. I love that. I'm a huge advocate of communication. I mean, like you said, it's if we're not trusting ourselves, if we're not truly communicating with ourselves, we're definitely not communicating well with other people. And that's a thing.
Yep. And we're only attracting people at that frequency of not communicating. And then that's a shit show.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, okay, so now we've talked about the divorce and that it's okay, for that to happen if that was to happen. So for the ladies out there that are in those relationships or in the marriages, and you have this now just newfound, we love each other, but we don't respect each other, we don't trust each other. Like, yes, take the approach of communicating, be vulnerable, set those boundaries, but be vulnerable with your partner and be okay for whatever is meant to be. That is going to create more joy and peace in your life.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone wins at that, in that space. And I know one of the things I struggled with, I think that a lot of listeners will resonate with this was, well, when I get divorced, I'm going to miss his family, or what's our family going to think about it? What's his parents going to think about me, or vice versa? And then I realized, wait a minute, nope, this has nothing to do with anyone else. Are other people affected? Yes. But if I'm more worried about how they're affected than my own happiness and the happiness of the person that I care about, but we're just not meant for each other, then I'm missing something. And so it really comes down to doing what's right for you and your partner, but you number one, right? You are number one. That's being that's full of self, not selfish. You have to get to be full of self so you can make sure that you are, living out your purpose and in alignment and living a happy life. And so it really comes down to, is this the most in alignment decision with everyone else taken out of it for myself and for the other person?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Self-love is the best love. For sure.
Which is like, people, you hear that all the time, right? But it's like, oh yeah, no, that actually makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, it really is. It totally is. And it's interesting too, because like I had a conversation with a friend of mine. Maybe this was like a year and a half ago, but this was a year and a half into my whole journey, right? And he was like, Kel, like I see your posts now, and it's just like it seems like you were like this depressed, like super sad, confused person. He goes, but I've never known you to be anything but this happy, just beautiful person. And I was like, thank you. But it's like, you thought I was happy then. Like I am like 10 times happier now.
You don't even know.
I mean, it's just so radical though. Like I was saying at the beginning, like sometimes we don't even know that we're doing, because we're probably in this state of doing and going and bypassing every emotion, thought, void, we're just voiding things out that we're not even aware. So creating the space to bring awareness to your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, that's when we start to tap into that love and that worthiness, and we start showing up for ourselves.
Yeah. Yep. And realizing what in your life matches who you want to become and what doesn't, which I know a lot of people are scared to start a journaling practice or scared to start doing the work because they realize on the other side of, oh crap, on the other side, things might have to change in my life. And that's where it gets to be, things get to change in my life versus have to, because you are the most important person in your life, because you're stuck with yourself for the rest of your life, no one else. And it really is cool when you look back, like you said, you don't know that you're not doing it until you know. And it's like, oh, wow, I really was trying the best I could with what I had. And now that I know better, I get to know better every single day, and I get to grow and have compassion for myself as I'm learning about myself and not embarrassed or bashing who I was, what I did, decisions I made. It was just decisions and you made that you didn't know until you knew.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Mhm.
I read something on your website. What was it? Oh, soul DNA upgrade. Can you tell us what that means?
Absolutely. It has actually a lot to do with what we're talking right now, is a soul DNA upgrade. And we've got the physical DNA and we've got crystalline, actually light DNA in our bodies too. And that turns on and is activated and is filled with remembrance of who we are. So think about those moments where it's almost like you hear music, a song comes on your Spotify list and you're like, whoa, this feels really good in my body. Like I know this song. It just lights you up and you want to dance, or you smell something that kind of makes you remember something, but you don't know what it is, or you're having a conversation that lights you up and all of that. And so it's coming back home to actually what you already know about yourself that you forgot about. So I subscribe to the belief that before we come down into these meat suits, that I like to joke that these bodies are called, I call them meat suits because I'm like, I'm an alien. I'm an alien unicorn. I don't know what you would call me, but this is in my meat suit and my soul is actually who I am. And when we come down in these meat suits, we forget, air quote, who we are. Our soul knew when we were in heaven who we are, what our life was going to be like. And then we were, in conception and then born, forget it all, because the whole point of life is to remember your truth, remember your purpose, remember your sovereignty, your confidence, your self-love. And so when we have these awakenings, like reading books, like journaling, we actually activate our soul DNA, that angel that floated down, if you can give that analogy, and came through. And that's where, doing the inner work, being around women who also are doing it, having the guidance, having the support to help you activate that soul DNA, just like a song, because you can't just remember it. You have to be triggered by it, whether that's a word, a sound, a song, any of that.
Yeah.
And then you remember, oh, no, this is who I am. I am this divine goddess. I am someone who loves to dance. I'm not awkward, fill in the blank. And so it's really activating your soul true essence through different modalities.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mm,
That's
yeah.
really cool. So,
Yeah.
because of the journaling and like
Yep.
through art and stuff, again, that you did like during your programs, do
Yeah.
you? Yes, I know you said you even have your own journal, but
Yeah.
like, do you
Yeah.
like paint or craft? Like, what type of like modalities, I guess, does that look like for your clients? Like, how do you
Yeah.
do
Yeah. So for me, I take people through, I'm a tangible person. And so I take them through their chakras. So one of my signature programs, Ascend, is literally taking people through their 7 chakras in their body. So this is your root chakra, which is your groundedness, your safety, money. There's your sacral, which is your womb. This is a lot around sexual trauma, as in like what society has told you sex is, what your parents told you sex was, into your solar, which is your confidence, your heart chakra, love, throat chakra, speaking your truth, third eye, intuition, and then the 7th is your crown, which is your connection to God, the universe, whatever you want, right? I believe in God and Jesus and the universe. And so it's really taking them through each of those chakras and providing different tools to activate the soul DNA in each chakra. So chakras are measurable. They're measurable energies in your body. A lot of people think it's like woo. It's woo at this point. It's not. There's major science behind each of them. It's really cool. And so yeah, it's taking them through each of those. And example for your sacral, which is your womb, that means doing a lot of womb healing with yoni wands, but also dancing in very sexy ways, and changing the story of what being sexual looks like. If you dance and you're like, oh, I feel like I shouldn't be dancing this way, it's like very naughty, or I shouldn't be touching myself because that's very slutty, fill in the blank, raising my hand, those were all my stories.
Oh,
And
same.
so even as simple as dancing by yourself, like naked, right, and touching all of your body, that helps you activate remembering that, wait, I am a sexual goddess and I love my body and I honor my body and I set boundaries on who gets to even be near my body.
Yeah.
And I get to, when I do exchange energy with another human, it's my choice and I can feel sexy in it, because I don't subscribe to society's belief that only sluts have sex, again, fill in the blank, or you have to wait till you're married to have sex, fill in the blank, doesn't matter. It's up to whoever. So that's a modality that is dancing, but then each chakra has a different technique to help you remember. And the whole goal, really, that's why it's called Ascend, is to help you ascend into your highest self, which is that, just like you, Kelly, you're the full circle of living your dream and doing the things, is you ascended into remembering, wait, this is what I want to do. And this is who I'm showing up as. And these are the things I have to say no to and yes to. So it all comes up to making sure all those chakras are aligned. So every opportunity that aligns with your higher self floats to you easily. And you don't have to be hitting your head on a brick wall at the 9-to-5 soul sucking job.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. I need to, that is something, just chakra work in general is something that I am diving more into.
Yeah.
It's funny, my sister has been she's extremely spiritual, does energy healing, sound baths, all the things.
Yes.
And, you know, I always am like, Ashley, you need to put like a chakra program out there because I, for one, need it. Like, I don't know the last thing. I mean, yeah, I'm learning, but I can't go into it like you just did, you know, into the depths of it like you and or my sister can go into it. But it's just, you know, it is fascinating. I just did like a whole like chakra like chant thing the other day that my coach was like, hey, you need to do this. I'm like, okay. So like sat in my little like meditation space and started doing the chants, but it was like, you know, you do whatever you feel called. And my intuition on Saturday was like, I needed to do my root, my I think my solar plexus.
So, right below your chest.
Yeah, solar plexus, and then my throat.
Yeah.
Because I think that there are days when I'm like on it. I'm just like going and going, and other days I'm like, I'm very aware when I'm not showing up the way I need to be. I'm like, Kelly, use that freaking voice, girl.
Yeah. And
stand in your power. Like, let's go.
And staying in your power is that solar. So there's days that you are hesitant to show up on Instagram stories or to even set a boundary, to have a tough conversation. All of that, they're all the same, is directly connected to that solar, along with your, here's a really cool fact, along with your womb, which is your sacral, your larynx in your throat actually mirrors your ovaries. So your fallopian, like that, if you look at a picture, they're the exact same. The top, your cervix, if you look down on an image, well, I'll put an image of your cervix, looks the exact same as your opening of your throat. So they are directly connected. Just a cool little thing, when your throat's blocked, it's sacral and your solar of confidence. So if you aren't owning your divine goddess sexuality, that's affecting your confidence, which is affecting how you speak. It's incredible once you realize how they're all tied together. And good for you for noticing. Interesting. I'm not speaking my truth. There's something going on here.
Yeah. And I had a lot of stuck energy last week. I mean, I don't even know why I did this. I just felt called to do this, but like I was doing something on my Instagram story and like had my Spotify playlist, and I just started like playing songs and like singing and dancing on my Instagram story. I was just like, I just feel freaking liberated. And yeah, did I need to show it to my Instagram story? No, but that was like a moment for Kelly, and Kelly was having it and she needed the world to see it. Like, and I just was like, oh my God, I don't even care how goofy I look right now. Like, it just feels so fucking good to get this out of me.
Yes, and you could inspire other women to do that. And I joke, it's like called frequency dance. It's like a hashtag frequency dance, and I get all my stories, and I just, sometimes it looks wild, sometimes it's like intense with Indian drum music, but it feels good, right? And when you do that and you share you moving that way as a woman, you help change a stereotype of you're only dancing for attention, to no, she's just sharing her essence. Like, you shared your you-ness with your community, which gave them the permission to also do the same. And that's how we change all these stories, you know, from the patriarchy to the divine feminine way of no, like, us women, we're amazing, and we get to move our bodies, and we get to inspire other women to do that as well. So good for you, girl, for like being like, here I am, like, what up, like, let's fucking do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of, I think that was like one thing that I was so empowered, inspired, motivated, all the amazing words here to describe you. Like so backstory, like Taylor and I met at Kayla Craft's experience. I call it an experience.
Yeah,
I
totally.
had an experience at that event. But yeah, it was a couple of years ago, and Taylor just had this presence about her, and you just have this like authenticity, this ownership of who you are. And it was just a very radical moment. And like you just said, like giving people permission, like, wow, I want to be like that. That is definitely the thought that came into my head. I mean, yeah, you were just so, self-expressed and self-aware. And like I said, just gave, I think, everyone in the audience that same type of like motivation to like lean into who you really actually are. Like, and, you said that at that time, you were like, everything's rooted in self-love. So everything that I do, like influencer work, everything it stems back to that self-love and the worthiness. And yeah, but you just like owned yourself. And I even like just lately, I saw a picture of you like probably in like Costa Rica or Bali or something. And you're like sitting on a ledge, like doing your like morning meditation or something, like completely topless. I mean, your boobs were facing.
Yeah, they're boobs.
Yeah. But I was just like, how freaking liberating is that? Like, I want to do that.
And how, and like, you even voicing that inspired you and helped you remember who you really are is this divine naked goddess, right? In your own unique way. And even voicing that, someone listening is like, naked? What? Like, I can do that? I can sit and do my morning routine topless in my living room if I wanted. And that's the cool thing, is it's like that, even you saying that activated someone's soul DNA who needed to hear you say that. Like, and that's full circle. The really cool thing about what happens when you own your unique you-ness unapologetically, where yes, you're going to trigger people who aren't ready for it, right? Yay. Well, I welcome that. That's one of my favorite things. Yep. But then you welcome in people who needed that medicine of you being your you-ness. And that's truly how we change the world, is like, boom, you're you. It reminds someone to be them. It gave permission to someone else to be themselves. And before we know it, you're only surrounded by women who are just owning their you-ness and being fearless about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting because I guess over the last like month and a half, I started like posting pictures of me in like little like negligee lingerie, little teddies and stuff. And there was fear behind it. Like there was like, oh gosh. And plus, just like the thoughts of like, I'm sure the people pleasing, the judgments, like whatever coming
all comes up. Yep.
This girl who was on this TV show, like people don't really like, yeah, I have maybe a strong followers, but my engagement has dropped and I applaud it every day. Like every time I lose 1,000, I'm like, hell yeah. It's getting me closer to the people who are showing up for the real Kelly Chase, not people that knew me from a show that think I broke someone's heart, like whatever. So, but I'm just like, oh my gosh, but I was still a little hesitant to do that. And even before I was like, had this like resistance to like, okay, well now I gotta like put makeup on, like do the whole thing to like show off these like outfits. Because I am like, it's a company that, I am working with, but I'm like, wow, the fact that I decided to even choose these items, they didn't just send them to me. I chose these items that I knew I was going to put on for public display. Like these were not just for the next boyfriend of mine. Like these are for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And then I started like get ready and I was like putting all the outfits on, creating a reel for this and everything. And I was like, holy shit, I'm having so much fun. I want to wear lingerie every day of my life. But it was like, it did have it had a very good response because it wasn't distasteful in any way. I was just like modeling lingerie. I was like, it was just like, it was like a bathing suit anyways. But, I felt so confident and that was the energy that was received. And yes, of course, there were some comments, but I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, that's fine because that's your story. That's not mine.
It's being projected onto you. Anytime someone, I remind myself of this, right? Anytime someone judges you, it's a direct reflection of their own inner wounds that you are simply shining onto them.
Yeah.
Right. What do people do at things that shine? They throw rocks at them.
They do.
And so it's like, when you realize, oh, no, I'm going to still be me. Like, and yeah, people are going to throw rocks at me, but actually it was a gift to them to be triggered so hopefully they look at their own wounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
go, girl.
Yeah, thank you.
I
It's
love it.
good. I'm like, I just want to like post pictures of me in lingerie all the time now.
And you get to change the story, right?
Yeah.
That lingerie, you can post it and
Next
feel
one, I'm
so
going to be topless. We'll be
yes, right? Like my dream is to have a compound that's a nudist. I joke with my family and friends, like actually, I was little. Second dream was to not only be a farmer, but to own a nudist compound where everyone just came and lived off the land. And if you didn't want to wear clothes, you didn't have to, right? And like, and so I'm like, yeah, that's, you can wear your lingerie and, come to my compound.
love it. I love it. So, okay. So, two questions here. One, when did you like, obviously we're all human and we go through those times where you are getting affected by people saying things and whatever, but like did you have a moment where you were like, F it, I am who I am, and you just started to fly and everything started to come easily, like you were saying, like things just started to happen for you? Like,
Yeah.
was there a moment, or did it take you a few years to finally actually fully step into you?
Yeah, such a good question. And it came the moment you asked right through. It's when I transitioned from, I was a fitness nutrition business online at first, doing, I did bikini competitions and all of that. And then when I finally pulled like the plug on that and transitioned fully to mindset, and talking about law of attraction, manifestation, I had people be like, well, you should just go back to posting your workouts. Like, who are you to talk about this kind of stuff? And I would get, there's a few people here and there that were not ready for that transition. And so I just kind of had to be like, at first, of course, I'm a human and I'm like, oh, like, should I go back to fitness? Like what? But then I realized, wait, 99% of people were begging for me to switch. The 1% who aren't ready for this yet has nothing to do with me. That's okay. And just like you were saying, when you lose 1,000 followers, bye. Like I call it releasing. Whenever someone unfollows me, I'm like, please, I release you. I am not begging you to stay here. Like if I don't resonate, leave. Like I don't want your energy even in my bubble then,
Yeah.
and vice versa. And the really cool thing is the moment you go from that shift of, oh, okay, people are going to not agree with me. They're not going to resonate with me. Great. But also that just means they're not ready for what I'm sharing yet. And they might come back around. And so years later, I have people that I probably get maybe a DM a day of someone who followed me in my fitness days, unfollowed me, was so triggered when I shifted the mindset, right? Who are you to do this? Came back and like, now I'm ready to actually hear what you have to say because I'm ready for it. And full circle. And so because if I didn't own my meanness, I would have done those 99% of people a disservice of the gift that I had to give them, and vice versa. If I let my ego and my fear make my decisions for me. And so if you're listening and you're wanting to step into your you-ness, you're wanting to step into your power and own your too muchness, let's just say, right? That's my core wound, is you're too much. You're actually doing a disservice to those who need you to be too much, who need you to share your unique light, even if it's like wild and extravagant. Someone needs to be inspired by you owning your too muchness. And I think, I'm always telling people this, it's our responsibility to be so us in order to give other people permission to be themselves too. Then we can all just like agree to delete people pleasing because we're so obsessed with being ourselves and making our responsibility to be ourselves.
Absolutely. I love
Yeah.
that. That's awesome. And how has your family I guess just accepted your you-ness?
Yeah. Well, growing up, they knew who I was because that's who I was growing up. And then I had to do a lot of acceptance and helping them to reprogram how they were viewing me. So honestly, transparency, when I shifted from into mindset stuff and spirituality, a lot of my family still saw me as this little brat, right? Who had temper tantrums and anger issues and was very self-absorbed. And so that's how they viewed me. Fair enough. And so I then was like, well, how can I prove to them that I'm different? How can I prove to them that I went through these programs that helped me actually become a better person? So I spent time trying to get their approval, which defeats the purpose of being your you-ness. And I had to get to a place, which really wasn't that long ago, where I had to just accept that if family and close friends, right, don't accept who I'm at now because they're still clinging to an old version of me, that's not on me. That's not my story and my problem to bear. They might have to go through their own grieving process of grieving the version of me they once knew. And this new one might intimidate them or might challenge their own beliefs about themselves. And so really I had to just surrender and not try to change people's view about me, nor try to morph into who I thought that they wanted me to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it, were there, I guess, was there any like resistance from your parents? I mean, you said your dad was a pastor, correct?
Yeah, my dad was a pastor, but I'm gonna turn this light on. He is out of my life. Oh, there we go. You're on video right now. I'm got real dark here. So yeah, completely out of my life. That was a changed story, forgiveness, releasing, a lot of soul contract releasing. But yeah, my mom's always been my biggest fan. She definitely is my biggest teacher growing up of just being who you are. She just was always who she was. She never cared about how people viewed her. So I always got her encouragement and permission. She always was just like, it's just Taylor, right? Taylor's gonna do her thing. But I did have like cousins and siblings especially cousins who were talking about me behind my back and saying, look at Taylor with all her money and living in her, apartment and this sort of stuff. And were projecting a lot of their own wounds onto me. And so I had to have a tough conversation probably a year ago with a very close cousin of mine who was getting involved with other cousins who I'm not so close with talking about me. And I had to say, this is hurting my feelings, but I'm not going to take it personally anymore. And here's why. So-and-so, our mutual cousin, I'm simply unveiling her own wounds, and I won't tolerate that. I am disappointed, I was telling my cousin, and you for talking about me, but I know that it's not about me.
Right.
And so I had to help awaken her to, you guys think you're doing this to try to get me to dull my light, but in the end, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to dull my light for you guys anymore. If you can't handle me where I'm at now with my business and my life, well, then you're not going to be able to handle me in 2-3 years as it continues to grow and expand.
Yeah.
And that was a really, I was crying. I was like shaking because it was a tough conversation to have to say that of like, you either stop talking about me or you're going to get bored because I'm not going to give it attention anymore. And so she received it so well. It actually allowed us to be closer than ever. She's now one of my best friends, and she needed that reminder of it's not me, it's her. And that helped her with her own spiritual awakening, her own growth. And if they talk about me, who cares? Like, if I think at this point they're probably bored. I mean, there's only so much you could say about me. I'm pretty much live a very just like a consistent me life. So by now I feel like they're bored, but yeah, I definitely had to have some really tough conversations like that with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and that goes back to like any relationship just requires that communication too.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have to be a romantic relationship. It's every relationship, your family, your friends, even. I mean, because as you probably know too, it's like the people that are the closest to you are probably the ones that are talking the most crap about you. Not because they may not understand where you're at, what you're doing. They're like, what the hell is she getting into? What's going on? Especially when we start doing all this spiritual, quote unquote, woo woo stuff. And, it is different than how we were raised.
100%.
So like, again, like I said, like my sister's been doing this for a long time, and she's been the quote unquote black sheep of the family. That's how she refers to herself, because myself, mom and dad were not in that space. I just started, like I said, this journey about 3.5 years ago. So it's brought me to this place of like actually better understanding my sister and where she's at. So, that I believe is like one reason why this whole coaching thing fell into my lap, to better understand my sister, and I'm grateful for that. There's still she's 15 years in, I'm only 3.5. There's still a
Yeah.
lot of difference there. But the communication is what is definitely, and I mean, for me, like forgiving, letting go, swallowing my own ego and pride in a lot of scenarios. And yeah,
Yeah.
I just literally had a very tough conversation myself with my sister recently. So,
Good.
it was really, really good. But behaviors, sometimes we can fall back into behavioral patterns very quickly too. But
Yeah.
having the awareness to like check yourself and be like, okay, yeah, you did this. Now you need to go fix
Clear it
that.
up. Yeah, like especially when you go back, hang out with family, and I'm sure you can relate to this one. It's when you go back to, like, for Thanksgiving or Christmas, or even just see your family, and you actually start to act how you used to, or engage how you used to. And that's very normal, but that's where you get to catch yourself and think, wait, why am I doing this? Interesting. Let me bring it back for a moment and remember, oh, maybe I have a fear of being too much my family, or them not loving me or accepting me. But then again, it's my job. And I believe that we have soul contracts with everyone in our life. And that means that while your mom or your father might not ever support your views, your beliefs, you being naked on Instagram, whatever, they signed up to be your mom and dad, and you signed up to be their child, to teach each other lessons. Even if you don't understand the lesson is still playing out. That's why most, there's black sheeps in each family, because that black sheep is there to show their family a different way of living, a different way of talking, to help awaken them to a different way of viewing, a different way of talking, a different way of thinking. So not everyone's a robot thinking the same thing.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's taken a long time for us to figure that one out. So
So I'm sure she's so happy that, it's kind of, you guys are all starting to get on the same page and vice versa.
we're getting there for sure.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah, we are getting there. But yeah, so one more thing I wanted to ask you about. You have a nonprofit called the She Alliance. Can you talk
Yep.
about
Yes, it's in progress of that. I always have to preface it. It's not like legally yet signed, but it's the process of. So she stands for Society. H stands for Health and Education. And so my mom and I started this organization after spending time in Ghana last year, and realizing that, and we realized this before, but we never realized what a problem it was, that what's happening in a lot of smaller villages, and in Africa's example of now with social media and opportunities, kids are leaving and going to school or going to other countries or other opportunities, and not coming back to their village to help this village grow. Therefore, they keep repeating these same cycles. So we're like, okay, with society as in community, right? Kind of just worked out with the word she, but society really means community. And so if we can help strengthen this community through the students, especially the girls, the young girls, women rule the world. They do. Ask my husband, he'll admit it. And if we can educate them on their health, i.e., their cycle, sex, boundaries, you don't have to have a kid at age 13 if you don't want to, as they think they do. And then educating themselves beyond that. So that means college, university, but then just like a woman, she is cyclical, right? Women are cyclical. We want she to be cyclical as well. So when they find that, when they're so invested in their own community, they learn their own sovereignty as a woman and their own health, and not getting pregnant at age 13, they go get educated, they come back and help with this next generation in their community/society. And that way they're not left behind, and these villages aren't dirt poor forever and always. And that way we can step out, because our goal with it is not to be these, the classic white savior, or try to fix someone, or I'm better than you. It's, hey, we actually want to empower you women, young women in the community, to take care of it. And then we're out, right? Like, we want to empower you to come back and to implement. So we're building water wells and all that, because water is number one. Water is priority, and even to go to school. These girls need to wash their hands after they change their tampon, right? Which is a reality, which doesn't exist over there, which turns into dysentery and diseases from unwashed hands. And so we want to be able to provide that, and then let them do their thing. And that way they're not dependent on us anymore. So yeah, we kind of had to pause it due to COVID because we couldn't get back there. But we fundraised before COVID really locked down. I think we ended up raising about like $10,000 to we built a actual health room at one of the schools for the girls to go and change their tampons and not have to do it out in the woods with a nurse. So we were able to we built it while we were there. And then we are in the process right now of getting things together for the official water wells, which when the world comes back, we'll hopefully be able to get back over there and get that going. So yeah, it's something that I'm really passionate about.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated to hear how people like even come up with things like
Right.
not to say like I would never have thought of that, but like that's so neat. I never thought of that. So
Yeah, you don't know. We went in it with the actual intention. One of those things you don't know until you know. We're like, okay, we definitely want to help, educate young women and get them to high schools and college and universities. But then we were there, we're like, wait, in order for them to even be healthy and educated, they literally actually need clean water. And so had we not been there and assumed what they needed, which a lot of nonprofits do, they assume what people need, and we did not want to be one of those. We realized, oh, it's actually water. Clean water is how this starts, and then we can go from there. So yeah, we didn't know either until we went there.
yeah, you have to put yourself in the situation, and that's a lesson for all, in all areas of our life. Like actually be like walk the walk, don't just talk the talk kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly.
Oh, that is so amazing. And you're married now.
Yep.
And
yeah, my soulmate.
your soulmate. So y'all are on the same level, cheer each other on, supportive.
Oh yeah.
Gonna be farming together.
Yep, exactly. And he's amazing. He's, I always remind people, your person's out there, period. They're just busy doing the work. Like I would never have imagined manifesting to be married to a man who is my equal in the most polarity of ways, right? He's got his shit just like I got mine. So it's not equal as in like two woke people. It's equal as in we're both doing a lot of heavy inner work. And he was married before too. And so you never know. That's why doing that inner work, knowing you're going to attract someone at that same level of doing their inner work too. So yeah, I'm very grateful for my trial marriage first, and then the real one that actually prepped me for a lifelong marriage.
Absolutely. That's so neat. That's awesome. Well, how can people find you?
Yay. Instagram. That's why I'm always hanging out over there, sharing my life on my stories. It's I am Taylor Simpson, like the show. So I am Taylor Simpson, and come DM me, say hi. You'll get a voice message back. I'm one of those people, usually walking on the treadmill, most likely. I like to multitask, but yeah, come say hi on Instagram.
Yeah, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being a part of today's episode. And I can't wait. I'm only in Georgia, so maybe I'll come visit your farm.
Yes. Oh my God, girl. Yes. Melissa was like, I'm going to be there the moment you get set up so we can have a girls' weekend for sure.
That'd be awesome. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.